The emergency call came at 3 in the morning. Nari was working late in her apartment, reviewing terraforming calculations for the new Busan colony expansion, when her communication device screamed to life. The sound cut through the quiet night like a blade. She answered without thinking. The face that appeared on the screen was unfamiliar, a medical officer with tired eyes and a grim expression that made Nari's stomach drop before he even spoke. "Is this Han Nari? Sister of Han Do-yoon?" "Yes. What happened? Is he okay?" Her voice came out steady, but her hands were already shaking. "There's been an incident. Your brother is in critical condition at the Central Medical Facility. You need to come now." Nari ran. She didn't bother changing out of her work clothes or grabbing a coat. The streets of New Busan were quiet at this hour, the artificial sky above displaying a perfect simulation of stars. She had always found it beautiful before. Now it looked fake and cold. The medical facility was a clean white building that smelled of antiseptic and fear. A nurse led her through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. With each step, Nari's heart beat harder. What could have happened? Do-yoon was careful. He was gentle. He was a music student, not someone who got into trouble. They stopped outside a recovery room. Through the window, Nari could see her brother lying on a medical bed, surrounded by machines that blinked and hummed. His face was swollen beyond recognition. His arms were covered in bandages. A breathing tube ran down his throat. "What happened to him?" Nari whispered. The doctor standing beside her was an older human woman with gray hair. Her expression was professional, but Nari could see anger hiding behind her eyes. "He was attacked after the cultural exchange event at the university. Multiple assailants. They beat him severely. We've stabilized him, but there's significant damage to his spinal cord. We're doing everything we can." "Who did this?" The doctor hesitated. "The security footage shows a group of Valkyrie mercenaries. They were attending the event as guests. According to witnesses, your brother was performing traditional music when they took offense. They claimed his performance was disrespectful to their culture." Nari felt something cold settle in her chest. The Valkyrie. She knew of them. Everyone in the colony did. They were a warrior species, strong and proud, with significant political power in the Galactic Council. They looked down on humans as weak and unimportant. "They'll be arrested, right? They'll face justice?" The doctor looked away. That small gesture told Nari everything she needed to know. "The Galactic Council has been notified. The Valkyrie Diplomatic Corps is claiming it was a cultural misunderstanding. They're saying your brother provoked them." "Provoked them? By playing music?" "I know, I'm sorry. The local authorities are investigating, but with Valkyrie diplomatic immunity." The doctor trailed off. Nari stood there, staring at her brother through the glass. Do-yoon had always been the happy one in their family. After their parents died in a transport accident, he had been the one who kept smiling, who found joy in small things. He practiced his gyeogjam for hours every day, his fingers dancing across the strings with such grace. He wanted to be a professional musician. He wanted to share Korean culture with the galaxy. And they had nearly killed him for it. Over the next 3 days, Nari barely left the hospital. She sat beside Do-yoon's bed as doctors worked to repair what they could. The news was not good. Even with advanced medical technology, the damage to his spine was severe. He might walk again, they said. He might regain some use of his hands, but he would never be the same. On the 4th day, Do-yoon woke up. His eyes were confused at first, then filled with pain as memory returned. He tried to speak, but the breathing tube prevented it. Nari held his hand gently, careful of the bruises. "Don't try to talk. You're safe now. I'm here." Tears ran down his swollen face. His fingers twitched in her hand, the smallest movement, but it took all his strength. The investigation, such as it was, concluded within a week. The Galactic Council representative was a tall alien with silver skin and no expression that Nari could read. He delivered the verdict in a flat, emotionless tone. After reviewing all evidence and statements, the Council has determined that this was an unfortunate cultural incident. The Velkari individuals involved have been reprimanded and reassigned off-world. The matter is considered closed. Closed? Nari stood up so fast her chair fell backward. They nearly killed my brother. They beat him until his spine broke. And you're calling it closed? The Velkari have diplomatic status. We cannot prosecute them without risking a major diplomatic incident. Your brother will receive compensation for his medical expenses. I don't want compensation. I want justice. The representative tilted his head slightly. This is justice, Miss Han. By galactic standards, this is a fair resolution. You must understand that humans are a relatively new species in the Council. You cannot expect the same considerations as established members. After he left, Nari sat alone in the meeting room for a long time. She thought about her brother, lying in a hospital bed, struggling to lift a spoon. She thought about the Velkari who did this to him, probably laughing about the weak human they had hurt. She thought about the Council, with all its laws and procedures, deciding that Doyen's suffering didn't matter. She had always believed in systems, in rules and order and fairness. She was an engineer. She solved problems by understanding how things worked and fixing them, but some systems were not broken. They were designed this way, designed to protect the powerful and ignore the weak. That night, Nari returned to the hospital. She sat beside Doyen and watched him sleep. His face was still swollen, but the worst of the bruising had started to fade. The doctors said he could start physical therapy soon. It would take months, maybe years. He might never play his instrument the same way again. She took his hand carefully, feeling how fragile it seemed. I'm going to fix this, she whispered. Not just for you, for everyone they've hurt. For everyone they'll hurt in the future. Doyun didn't wake up. His breathing was steady, helped by the machines around him. Nari made her decision in that quiet hospital room. She would not cry to the Council for justice they would not give. She would not beg diplomats who did not care. She would not accept their compensation and their closed cases. She would wait, she would train, and she would make them understand what it meant to harm humans and walk away. 3 months after the attack, Nari quit her job. Her supervisor tried to convince her to stay, offering her better pay and more interesting projects. She declined politely and provided no explanation. She sold most of her possessions, keeping only what could fit in 2 bags. Her small apartment, with its view of the artificial mountains, went to a young couple who seemed excited about the space. She arranged for Doyen's medical care to be fully funded through an automated account. The payments would continue for years, drawn from her savings and investments. She set up a simple message system so he could contact her in emergencies, but she did not tell him where she was going. The night before she left, she visited him one last time. He was doing better now. He could sit up with help. He could speak, though his voice was rougher than before. His hands still shook when he tried to use them, but the doctors were optimistic about his progress. You're leaving, he said. It was not a question. He knew her too well. For a while. I have some work to do. Nari, don't do something stupid. Don't throw your life away because of what happened to me. She smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm investing in the future. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face, but he was too tired. She kissed his forehead and left before he could ask more questions. Her first stop was a mining colony on the outer rim of human space. The place was rough and dirty, full of people who asked no questions about your past. She found Master Choi in a bar that smelled of alcohol and sweat. He was a thick man in his 60s, with scars on his hands and a face that had seen too much violence. I need you to train me, she said, sitting down across from him without invitation. He looked at her with eyes that missed nothing. Train you for what? Everything. Combat, weapons, survival. You don't look like a soldier. I'm not. Not yet. He studied her for a long moment. This about revenge? This is about making sure what happened to my family never happens to anyone else's. He laughed, a short bark of sound. That's revenge dressed up in pretty words, girl, but at least you're honest about it being dressed up. He agreed to train her, but only after she proved she was serious. He made her work in the mines for 3 months, hauling ore and operating heavy machinery 12 hours a day. It was brutal work that left her exhausted and aching. Several times she wanted to quit. Each time she thought about Do-yoon's broken hands and kept going. When she passed his test, the real training began. Master Choi had been a Special Forces operative during the early days of human expansion. He had fought in places where the Council's laws meant nothing. He knew how to kill in 100 different ways. But more importantly, he knew how to survive. He taught her how to fight in zero gravity, where there was no up or down. He taught her how to use knives and guns and her own body as weapons. He taught her how to ignore pain, how to keep moving when everything in her wanted to stop. Pain is just information, he would say as she struggled through another exercise. It tells you there's a problem. It doesn't tell you to quit. The training was hard, but Nari pushed herself harder. She woke before dawn to run through the colony's corridors. She practiced movements until her muscles screamed. She studied tactics and strategy until her eyes blurred. After 6 months with Master Choi, she moved on. She spent time on a medical station, learning emergency medicine and field surgery. She could not afford to be helpless if she was injured. The doctors asked why an engineer wanted to learn these skills. She told them she was planning to work in dangerous areas. It was not entirely a lie. She traveled to a tech hub where body modifications were legal and common. The procedures were expensive and painful. They enhanced her reflexes, making her faster. They strengthened her bones and muscles beyond normal human limits. They added neural interfaces that allowed her to connect directly with computer systems. Each modification took weeks to heal. Each one hurt more than the last. The technician warned her about the risks, about the possibility of rejection or nerve damage. Nari signed the consent forms without hesitation. Between training and modifications, she studied. She learned everything she could about the Velkari. Their language, which was harsh and guttural. Their culture, which valued strength above all else. Their military structure. Their honor codes. Their weaknesses. She discovered that the Velkari had a concept called Greshkal, a blood debt that could only be settled through combat or death. It was an ancient tradition, rarely used in modern times, but still technically part of their legal system. She learned that Velkari society was hierarchical and rigid, that they respected strength but despised weakness, that they viewed mercy as a failing and compromise as betrayal. She found out that the Velkari who had attacked Do-yoon was named Thexal, and that he had been promoted since the incident. He was now a commander in the Velkari military, stationed on one of their core worlds. The attack on her brother had not hurt his career at all. If anything, it had helped it. This information should have made her angry. Instead, she felt nothing but cold determination. 2 years into her preparation, Nari started working as a freelance engineer. She took jobs that paid well and asked no questions. She fixed ships for smugglers. She designed weapon systems for private security firms. She upgraded mining equipment for corporations that operated in legally gray areas. The work was morally questionable, but it served 2 purposes. It gave her money, which she needed for training and equipment, and it gave her connections. She met information brokers who could find anyone in the galaxy. She met smugglers who could move anything anywhere. She met hackers who could break into any system. She also met Velkari. Not the military types, but outcasts and criminals who had been exiled from their homeworlds. From them, she learned things no amount of research could teach her. How Velkari really thought. What they feared. though they would never admit to fear, how their honor system could be manipulated by someone who understood it well enough. One of these outcasts, a scarred female named Kresh, became something like a friend. She taught Nari the finer points of Velkari combat philosophy. "We are taught from birth that strength is everything," Kresh explained one night over drinks. "But strength is not just muscle, it is will. It is the refusal to break. Your people understand this, I think. You are weak in body but strong in spirit. That is why we fear you, though most Velkari would die before admitting it." "Why were you exiled?" Nari asked. Kresh smiled, showing sharp teeth. "I refused to kill someone who had shown me mercy. In Velkari culture, this made me weak, but I think it made me strong in a way they cannot understand. 3 years, 4, 5. Nari barely recognized herself in the mirror anymore. Her body was lean and hard, covered in small scars from training accidents. Her eyes had a sharp quality they had not possessed before. She moved differently, with the controlled grace of someone always ready for violence. She sent money to Doyen regularly, always from different accounts, always anonymously. She received updates on his progress through automated systems. He could walk now with a cane. His hands had regained most of their function, though they would never be as nimble as before. He had returned to his studies. He was trying to play music again. Knowing he was recovering made everything worthwhile. In her 5th year of preparation, Nari created a new identity. Park Ji-won, freelance combat engineer with an excellent reputation and no official history before 3 years ago. She built this identity carefully, creating a trail of jobs and references that would stand up to investigation. When she was ready, she started applying for positions with Velkari military contractors. Her applications were rejected at first. Humans were not trusted with important military work. But Park Ji-won was persistent, and her skills were undeniable. Finally, she received an offer. A Velkari tech firm needed an engineer to upgrade their battlecruiser systems. The pay was excellent. The location was Velkari's prime, the Velkari homeworld, the same world where Commander Thexol was stationed. Nari accepted the position immediately. 5 years of waiting, 5 years of training, 5 years of becoming someone new. Now the real work could begin. Velkari's prime was a world of red stone and gray skies. The cities were built like fortresses, all sharp angles and defensive positions. Everything about the planet screamed of a culture built on war and conquest. Nari stepped off the transport ship and felt the heavy gravity immediately. Velkari worlds were built for a species stronger than humans. Even with her modifications, she could feel the extra weight pressing down on her. The tech firm that hired her was called Korseth Military Solutions. Their facility was a massive compound outside the capital city, surrounded by walls and guard towers. Nari reported to the main building with her falsified credentials and her carefully prepared background story. Her supervisor was a Velkari named Gresh. He was nearly 7 feet tall with gray skin and yellow eyes that studied her with obvious skepticism. "A human engineer," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I argued against hiring you, but my superiors believe you have skills we need." "I do," Nari replied in fluent Velkari. "Your battlecruiser power systems are inefficient. I can improve them by 30%. Gresh's eyes widened slightly at her use of his language. "You speak well for a human. I worked on several Velkari projects in the outer systems. I learned it was better to communicate directly rather than through translators." He grunted, which seemed to be approval. "Show me what you can do. Your quarters are in Section 7. You start tomorrow." The living quarters for non-Velkari workers were small and sparse. Nari did not care. She was not here for comfort. She spent her first evening exploring the facility, memorizing layouts and security protocols. She noted where the important systems were located, where the guards were stationed, where the surveillance cameras had blind spots. She also accessed the facility's personnel database through her neural interface. It took several hours to break through their security, but her skills had improved considerably over the past 5 years. Once inside, she searched for one name: Commander Thexal, stationed at the military base 15 kilometers north, currently overseeing preparations for a demonstration of Velkari military superiority scheduled for 3 months from now. Perfect. Work began the next day. The battlecruiser she was assigned to was called the Cormac. It was a massive ship designed to carry 500 soldiers and enough weapons to destroy a small city. The power systems were indeed inefficient, based on old technology that wasted energy through heat dispersion. Nari threw herself into the work. She redesigned power flow patterns. She upgraded cooling systems. She optimized energy distribution. Within 2 weeks, she had the systems running at 40% improved efficiency, better than her initial estimate. Gresh watched her work with growing respect. "You are skilled," he admitted one day. "For a human, you understand engineering at a high level." "Engineering is engineering," Nari replied. "The principles are universal." "Perhaps. But I have worked with many species. Most do not grasp military systems the way you do." She shrugged. "I'm thorough. I study what I need to know." Her success with the Cormac led to more assignments. She was asked to review other systems, to consult on different projects. With each new assignment, she gained more access to the facility's networks. She saw troop movements, supply chains, communication protocols. She absorbed everything like a sponge. More importantly, she began to understand the politics within the Velkari military. There were factions, she discovered. Some believed in the old ways of conquest and domination. Others argued for adaptation to the new galactic order. The hardliners were led by a group of commanders who viewed other species as inferior and dangerous. Commander Thexal was one of these hardliners. 6 weeks into her assignment, Nari received an unexpected summons. A high-ranking official wanted to meet with her. She was escorted to a secure conference room where 3 Velkari officers waited. One of them was Thexal. She recognized him immediately from the security footage of the attack. He was tall even for a Velkari, with decorative scars on his arms that signified military honors. His eyes were cold and arrogant. He did not recognize her. Why would he? He had beaten her brother 5 years ago and never thought about it again. "Engineer Park," the senior officer said. "I am General Krev. We have been impressed with your work. We have a special project that requires someone with your skills." "I'm honored, General. What kind of project?" "In 3 months, we are holding a demonstration for the Galactic Council. We will show the superiority of Velkari military technology. We need our systems operating at peak efficiency. Based on your performance, we want you to oversee all technical aspects of the demonstration." This was more than Nari had hoped for. Direct access to the demonstration systems, the ability to influence what the Council would see. "I would be pleased to accept," she said calmly. Thexal spoke for the first time. "Can we trust a human with such an important task?" General Krev glanced at him with mild annoyance. "Engineer Park has proven her competence. Unless you have specific concerns, Commander?" Thexal studied Nari closely. She met his gaze without flinching, showing neither fear nor recognition. After a long moment, he looked away. "No specific concerns. I simply believe we should be cautious." "Your caution is noted. Engineer Park, you will begin immediately. Commander Thexal will be your primary contact, as he is overseeing the military aspects of the demonstration." Nari nodded. "I understand. I won't disappoint you." After the meeting, she returned to her quarters and allowed herself a small smile. The universe had just handed her everything she needed: access to the demonstration systems, regular contact with Thexal, the perfect opportunity. Over the following weeks, Nari worked closely with Thexol and his team. She listened to their plans. The demonstration would showcase Velkari dominance over what they called client species, weaker races that depended on Velkari protection. There would be military displays, technology exhibitions, and cultural presentations designed to reinforce Velkari superiority. It was, essentially, a propaganda show, and Nari was being asked to make it run smoothly. She played her part perfectly. She was professional and efficient. She solved problems before they became serious. She made suggestions that improved the demonstration without drawing too much attention to herself. All the while, she was installing backdoors in every system she touched, hidden programs that could record and transmit data, overrides that would respond only to her commands, carefully crafted vulnerabilities that looked like normal system architecture. She also began her psychological campaign against Thexol. It started small. Anonymous messages questioning his competence, sent through channels that could not be traced back to her. Rumors planted among his subordinates about his past failures. Subtle manipulations of his assignments to make him look less effective. Velkari culture valued strength and success. Any sign of weakness was dangerous. Nari made sure that small doubts began to grow around Thexol. One evening, 2 months into the project, she encountered him alone in the facility's command center. He was reviewing tactical displays, his expression frustrated. "Problems, Commander?" she asked. He glared at her. "Nothing that concerns you, human. I'm responsible for the technical systems. If there are problems, they do concern me." He hesitated, then seemed to decide she was too insignificant to matter. "Someone has been questioning my leadership, spreading rumors. It is dishonorable." "Have you identified who?" "No. They hide like cowards." He slammed his fist on the console. "If I find them, I will challenge them to combat. That is the Velkari way." Nari nodded thoughtfully. "In your culture, combat resolves disputes, correct?" "It proves who is stronger." "Yes. Combat is truth. The weak fall, the strong prevail." "And anyone can issue a challenge?" "Any Velkari, though it would be foolish for a lesser species to challenge one of us." He laughed. "A human challenging a Velkari would be suicide." "Probably," Nari agreed. "Though I've heard of ancient Velkari laws that allow victims to challenge their attackers." "Something about blood debts?" Thexol's expression shifted slightly. "You speak of Greshkal. It is an old tradition, rarely invoked. But still legal?" "Technically, though I have never seen it used in my lifetime. Why do you ask?" "Just curious about Velkari culture. Understanding how my employers think helps me serve them better." He seemed satisfied with this answer. "You are more thoughtful than most humans." "That is why you are useful." After he left, Nari allowed herself to feel the anger she had suppressed during their conversation. He had no idea who she was, no memory of the boy he had beaten nearly to death. To him, Doyen was nothing, less than nothing. She would make sure he remembered. The final month before the demonstration passed quickly. Everything was coming together perfectly. The systems were ready. The back doors were in place. The psychological pressure on Thexol was increasing. Nari sent one final anonymous message to Doyun, breaking her long silence. She told him she was safe. She told him to watch the galactic news in exactly 2 weeks. She told him she loved him. Then she prepared for the demonstration that would change everything. The demonstration was scheduled to take place in the grand arena of Velkaris Prime. It was an enormous structure that could hold 50,000 spectators. Delegations from across the galaxy had been invited. Council members, diplomats, military observers, and journalists from 100 different worlds would attend. The Velkari wanted everyone to see their strength. Nari intended to give them a show they would never forget. 1 week before the event, she received a coded message on a secure channel. It was from Lieutenant Bora, a human intelligence officer she had contacted months ago through her network of contacts. Bora had been quietly investigating the attack on Doyun, collecting evidence that the official council report had ignored. "I have everything you asked for," the message read. "Communication logs, witness statements, medical records. Enough to prove the attack was premeditated and that council members were paid to dismiss it. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you start, there's no going back." Nari sent a simple reply. "I'm sure. Be ready to move when I give the signal." 3 days before the demonstration, Nari made contact with the Velkari dissidents she had identified during her research. They were a small group, mostly younger officers and civilians who believed their culture needed to change. They risked everything by opposing the hardliners, but they were willing to help if it meant exposing corruption. She met their leader, a female named Kayla, in a secure location outside the city. "You're asking us to commit treason," Kayla said bluntly. "I'm asking you to help reveal the truth," Nari replied. "Your people claim to value honor and strength. But what honor is there in beating a defenseless musician? What strength is shown by hiding behind diplomatic immunity? Thexal and his faction are powerful. If we move against them and fail, we die. If we succeed, your culture has a chance to be what it claims to be. Strong because of genuine virtue, not because you silence anyone who questions you." Kayla studied her for a long moment. "Why do you care about our culture? Your brother was the one harmed." "Because this isn't just about my brother anymore. It's about every species the Velkari have bullied, every victim the council ignored, every time the powerful escaped justice because they were too important to punish." Kayla finally nodded. "Tell us what you need." 2 days before the demonstration, Nari sent an anonymous message to Thexal. It was carefully worded to strike at his pride while referencing the attack on Doyun in ways only someone who had been there would know. "Commander Thexal, you struck down a human musician 5 years ago and called it strength. You hid behind diplomatic immunity and called it honor. I name you coward. I name you oathbreaker. I invoke Greshkal, the right of blood judgment. Face me in the arena during your demonstration, or let the galaxy see you refuse." The message was public, sent through channels that ensured it would be seen by thousands of Velkari and other species. In Velkari culture, such a challenge could not be ignored without losing face. But Thexal could not accept it either. Humans were not legally allowed to invoke Greshkal. He would have to find a way to respond that preserved his honor while avoiding the challenge. Nari was counting on his pride, making him choose confrontation over caution. His response came within hours, also public, also arrogant. "The human who sent this message is either insane or ignorant. Greshkal is sacred to the Velkari people. It cannot be invoked by lesser species. However, I am not without mercy. If this foolish human wishes to face me, I will grant them a quick death during the demonstration. Let all see what happens to those who challenge Velkari authority." Perfect. He had taken the bait. The night before the demonstration, Nari could not sleep. She lay in her quarters thinking about the journey that had brought her here. 5 years of training, 5 years of sacrifice, 5 years of becoming someone her younger self would barely recognize. Was it worth it? She thought about Doyun, about his broken hands and his lost dreams. She thought about all the other victims, the ones whose stories never made the news. She thought about the corrupt system that protected the strong and crushed the weak. Yes, it was worth it. The morning of the demonstration arrived with red sunlight breaking through gray clouds. Nari dressed in the combat gear she had prepared, lightweight armor designed for human physiology, reinforced at key points. She carried no visible weapons, but her body itself had been modified to be dangerous. Her reflexes were faster than any natural human. Her bones were reinforced with carbon fiber. Her muscles had been enhanced with synthetic tissue. She was not the soft engineer who had received that terrible call 5 years ago. She was something new, something dangerous. The arena filled quickly. Nari watched from a technical booth as thousands of spectators took their seats. She saw council members in their designated sections. She saw human diplomats, looking uncomfortable among so many Velkari. She saw journalists setting up their equipment, eager to cover what they thought would be a simple display of military power. General Krev opened the demonstration with a speech about Velkari's strength and the natural order of the galaxy. It was the same propaganda Nari had heard 100 times. The crowd cheered. The council members looked bored. Then came the military displays. Velkari soldiers demonstrating combat techniques, ships performing aerial maneuvers, weapons destroying target drones, all of it designed to intimidate and impress. Nari waited for her moment. It came when Thexal took the center of the arena to speak. He stood in full ceremonial armor, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the massive structure. Today, we demonstrate why the Velkari are the rightful leaders of this galaxy. We are strong where others are weak. We are honorable where others deceive. We protect the lesser species because they cannot protect themselves. Nari activated her first program. Every screen in the arena suddenly displayed new content. Security footage from 5 years ago, Doyun playing his Gayagam at the cultural exchange, the Velkari approaching him, the beating that followed. The crowd went silent. Thexal froze, staring at the screens in shock. Nari's voice came through every speaker in the arena. She had dropped her false identity now. When she spoke, it was in perfect Velkari, loud and clear. My name is Han Nari. The boy you are watching is my brother, Han Doyun. 5 years ago, Commander Thexal and his squad beat him nearly to death for the crime of playing music. The Galactic Council called it a cultural misunderstanding and dismissed the case. She activated her second program. New images appeared. Communication logs between council members and Velkari officials, bank transfers, explicit discussions about burying the investigation. But it was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate attack. And it was covered up by council members who were paid to protect the attackers. The crowd erupted in chaos. Diplomats were shouting. Council members were trying to leave. Security forces did not know whether to stop the broadcast or maintain order. General Krev's voice cut through the noise. Shut this down! Find who is doing this! You cannot shut down the truth, Nari replied. These broadcasts are being transmitted to every major news network in the galaxy. Everyone is watching now. She stepped out of the technical booth and walked toward the center of the arena. The crowd parted before her, unsure what to do. She had no weapons visible. She was just one human woman in a sea of Velkari warriors. But she had their attention. Commander Thexal, she called out. I am Han Nari, sister of Han Doyun. Under the ancient law of Greshkal, I challenge you to single combat. Face me now, before all these witnesses, and let your strength prove your honor. The entire arena went silent. This was unprecedented. A human invoking sacred Velkari law, challenging a commander in front of the entire galaxy. Thexal's face was twisted with rage. You have no right to invoke Greshkal. You are not Velkari. The law says a victim or their family may challenge their attacker. It does not specify species. Unless you wish to admit your sacred laws are lies like your claims of honor. She was backing him into a corner. If he refused, he looked weak before his own people and the galaxy. If he accepted, he would be legitimizing a human's right to challenge Velkari authority. General Krev stepped forward. This is absurd. Security, remove this human from the arena. Before the guards could move, Kayla and her dissidents appeared throughout the crowd. They had positioned themselves strategically, and now they spoke in unison. Let the challenge stand. Let her prove her claim in combat as our law demands. Other voices joined them. Young Velkari who were tired of the old ways. Civilians who had been hurt by the hardliners' arrogance. Even some older warriors who valued genuine honor over political convenience. The chant spread through the arena. Let her fight! Let her fight! General Krev looked furious, but he was trapped by his own culture's values. To deny the challenge now would be to admit that Velkari law meant nothing. Thexal saw it too. His expression changed from rage to cold determination. Fine, I accept this human's challenge. I will prove before all that Velkari's strength is supreme, and when she lies broken at my feet, let no one question our authority again. He drew his blade, a curved weapon designed for Velkari hands. Nari smiled. After 5 years of waiting, the moment had finally come. Then let us begin. The arena officials scrambled to prepare the combat space. Traditional Velkari duels required specific conditions. The floor was cleared. Ancient ceremonial weapons were brought out and offered to both fighters. Thexal chose a heavy blade that looked like it could split a person in half. Nari selected 2 shorter blades, lighter and faster. The crowd watched in absolute silence. This was no longer a demonstration of Velkari superiority. It had become something far more significant. A human challenging their entire system. A victim demanding justice in the most public way possible. General Krev stood at the edge of the combat circle. His expression was carved from stone. The challenge has been accepted. Combat will continue until one fighter yields or falls. There will be no outside interference. Do both fighters understand? I understand, Nari said. I understand. Thexal growled. Then begin. Thexal attacked immediately, using his size and strength to try to end the fight quickly. His blade came down in a powerful overhead strike that would have split Nari in half if it connected, but it did not connect. She was not where he expected her to be. Her enhanced reflexes let her move faster than a normal human. She sidestepped the strike and scored a shallow cut across his arm. First blood. The crowd gasped. Thexal roared and attacked again, this time with a series of powerful strikes designed to overwhelm her. Each blow had enough force to shatter bones, but Nari did not try to block them. She evaded, moving around him like water around a rock. You're strong, she said calmly as she dodged another strike. But you're slow. 5 years ago you attacked a defenseless musician. Today, you face someone who knows how to fight back. Her words hit as hard as any blade. Thexal's attacks became wilder, driven by rage rather than skill. This was what Nari had counted on. Velkari warriors were trained to use their strength, but they relied on overwhelming force. Against an opponent who refused to be overwhelmed, they became predictable. She scored another cut, this time across his leg, then another on his shoulder. None of the wounds were deep enough to disable him, but they were adding up. More importantly, they were embarrassing him. Is this the strength you brag about? Nari asked. Is this the superiority you claim? I'm just a human, a member of a lesser species. Yet you cannot touch me. Thexal's face was dark with fury. He changed tactics, using his blade to create distance while he reassessed. He was not stupid. Despite his arrogance, he could see that his usual approach was not working. You are faster than you should be, he said. What modifications do you have? Does it matter? You call humans weak, but you never asked what we become when we decide to be strong. He circled her carefully now, looking for an opening. The crowd watched, completely silent. This was not going the way anyone expected. Nari used the pause to speak, her voice carrying through the arena. 5 years ago, you and your squad attacked my brother. He was 19 years old. He was playing music. You beat him until his spine broke. You destroyed his dreams of becoming a musician. And when you were done, you walked away laughing. He insulted our culture with his noise. Thexal spat. He shared his culture with anyone willing to listen. You saw sharing as an insult because you cannot imagine anyone being proud of something you do not understand. Thexal charged again, but this time with more control. He was learning from his mistakes. His attacks were more focused, designed to corner her rather than overpower her. It was what she had been waiting for. When he committed to a thrust, Nari moved inside his guard. Her shorter blades were perfect for close combat. She struck at his joints, at the weak points in his armor. He was strong, but strength meant nothing if you could not use it. She cut the tendons in his wrist. His weapon fell from suddenly nerveless fingers. The crowd erupted in shocked noise. A human had disarmed a Velkari commander. It should have been impossible. Thexal stumbled backward, clutching his injured wrist. For the first time, Nari saw fear in his eyes. He had expected an easy victory. Instead, he was losing to the sister of a victim he barely remembered. "Do you remember him now?" Nari asked, advancing slowly. "Do you remember my brother? Do you remember any of the people you've hurt?" "It was not personal," Thexal said, still backing away. "It was about maintaining order, about showing that Velkari authority must be respected." "No. It was about cruelty, about hurting someone weaker than you because you could." She could have killed him then. One thrust to the throat, one cut across the major artery in his leg. She had the skill and the opening. The crowd expected it. Traditional Velkari duels often ended in death. But Nari did not want him dead. Death would make him a martyr. Death would let him escape the consequences of his actions. Instead, she kicked his legs out from under him and put a blade to his throat, forcing him to kneel before 50,000 witnesses. "Yield," she commanded. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Finally, through clenched teeth, he spoke. "I yield." The crowd exploded into chaos. Velkari were shouting in disbelief. Diplomats were frantically recording everything. Journalists were transmitting to their networks. This moment would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. But Nari was not finished. "General Krev," she called out, "I claim victory in this challenge. By Velkari law, my blood debt is satisfied. But the debt owed to justice is not." She activated her final program. The screens around the arena lit up with thousands of files, communications, orders, reports. 5 years of evidence that Lieutenant Bora had compiled, combined with everything Nari had stolen from Velkari military networks during her time working for them. "These files contain proof of systematic abuse," Nari announced. "Proof that attacks like the one on my brother were not isolated incidents. They were part of a campaign to intimidate species the Velkari view as inferior. Proof that council members were bribed to ignore these crimes. Proof that this corruption goes to the highest levels of galactic government." The displays showed message after message. Velkari commanders bragging about putting humans in their place. Council members discussing payments in exchange for dismissing investigations. Documents outlining a deliberate policy of harassment against colonies that showed too much independence. General Krev's face had gone pale. "Where did you get these files?" "From your own systems. Your security was thorough, but not thorough enough to stop someone who spent 5 years preparing. Every major news network in the galaxy is receiving these files right now. You cannot suppress this. You cannot make it disappear." She looked around the arena, making eye contact with as many beings as possible. Velkari warriors, human diplomats, council members from a dozen different species. "For too long, the powerful have acted without consequences. For too long, victims like my brother have been ignored. That ends today. Today, the galaxy sees the truth. Today, we demand better." The arena descended into absolute chaos. Council members were trying to leave, but exits were blocked by crowds demanding answers. Velkari officers were arguing with each other about what to do. Security forces stood frozen, unsure who to arrest or what laws had been broken. In the middle of it all, Nari stood over the defeated Thexal. She looked down at the being who had nearly killed her brother, who had walked away unpunished, who had represented everything wrong with the current system. "I did not do this for revenge," she told him quietly. "Revenge would have been easy. I could have killed you in a dozen different ways over the past months. I did this to make sure what happened to my brother never happens to anyone else's brother. I did this to change the system that protected you." She stepped back, leaving him kneeling in the center of the arena. At that moment, a new sound cut through the chaos. Music. Beautiful, haunting music played on a traditional Korean geogyeom. It came through the arena's speakers, clear and pure. On the main screen appeared an image of Do-yoon. He was in his apartment on New Busan, sitting with his instrument. His hands shook slightly as they moved across the strings, the lasting effect of his injuries. But he played anyway, the same piece he had performed 5 years ago when he was attacked. Nari had arranged for this transmission. She wanted the galaxy to see not just the evidence of crimes, but the human cost. Do-yoon was not just data in a file, he was a real person who had suffered real harm. As the music played, something shifted in the arena. The anger and chaos gave way to something else: shame, understanding, recognition that this was about more than politics or power. This was about basic decency, about treating other beings with respect regardless of their species or strength. Even some of the Velkari looked affected. Kayla and her dissidents stood openly now, no longer hiding their opposition to the hardliners. They were joined by others, Velkari who had been silently uncomfortable with their culture's direction, but had never spoken up. The music ended. Do-yoon looked directly into the camera and spoke in simple, clear galactic standard. "My name is Han Do-yoon. 5 years ago, I was attacked for sharing my culture. I almost died. I lost the ability to play music the way I once could. But I did not lose my love for it. I did not lose my belief that different cultures can coexist peacefully. My sister fought for justice today, but I fight for something else. I fight to prove that we can be better than our worst impulses, that we can build a galaxy where strength is measured not by who we can hurt, but by who we can help." The transmission ended. The arena was silent except for the sound of 50,000 beings thinking about what they had witnessed. Nari looked up at the screen where her brother's image had been. She had waited 5 years for this moment. She had trained until her body could barely take it. She had sacrificed her old life completely. But looking at Do-yoon now, seeing him alive and healing and still making music despite everything, she knew it had been worth it. General Krev finally found his voice. This is not over." "You're right," Nari agreed. "It's not over. It's just beginning. These files are public now. The galaxy is watching. You can try to suppress this, but you will fail. The only choice you have is whether you face this truth with honor or continue to hide from it like cowards." She turned and walked toward the arena exit. No one tried to stop her. Security did not know if she had broken any laws. Technically, she had won the duel fairly. Everything else she had done was expose truthful information. As she reached the exit, Kayla and several other Velkari dissidents joined her. "That was either the bravest thing I have ever seen or the most insane," Kala said. "Maybe both," Nari replied. "What happens now?" Now the real work begins. Winning a fight was easy. Changing a system is much harder, but at least now people are paying attention." She looked back at the arena one last time, at the screens still displaying evidence of corruption, at the council members who could no longer pretend they did not know what was happening, at the journalists recording everything for the galaxy to see. She had not just harmed those who harmed her brother. She had made something new, made people see, made change possible. It would have to be enough.